Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the first virtual meeting of Brampton's Committee of Council. We will begin the meeting with the City Clerk calling the roll for the attendance at today's meeting. Mr. Clerk.
Members of committee, please indicate your attendance. Councillor Santos.
I am here.
Councillor Vasante is here.
Present.
Councillor Willens.
Present.
Councillor Paleshi.
Present.
Councillor Bowman.
Present.
Councillor Medeiros.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
I'm here.
Councillor Fortini.
I'm here.
Councillor Singh.
Here.
Councillor Dillon.
Here.
And Mayor Brown is in attendance as well. He is not counted for quorum, but he is noted as being present as well. All members are present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We are now at approval of the agenda. Does any member wish to add a business item to today's meeting? If so, please use the instant messaging section of Skype to add your name to the speakers list. And I have on my list presently Councillor Willens. Councillor Willens.
Yes, I think it's under community service. I'd like to add a just a brief discussion item and ask staff a few questions about the facilities, the operations with them being closed right now.
So, Mr. Chair, that would be identified as proposed item 10.3.2 under community services. Discussion item from Councillor Willens regarding facility operations.
Thank you. Any other items, Councillor Willens?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, next I have Councillor Paleshi. Councillor.
No, I'm not on.
Okay, thank you. Do any other members have items to add to the agenda? Seeing none, we have a motion moved by Councillor Willens to approve the agenda. Instead of seeking recorded votes for this item, I will ask if there is anyone opposed to the motion. Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Is there anyone against? Thank you. There are no objections, so the motion carries. As we all continue to persevere in these extraordinary times, Committee of Council is permitted to fully conduct virtual meetings to support physical distancing and comply with public gathering restrictions while ensuring the business of the municipality can continue. Meetings of municipal councils are to be open to the public for transparency and accountability, and our meeting will continue to be as well, with a few precautions and limitations. In-person attendance at this meeting is severely restricted. Members and most staff are participating electronically in this meeting. The public can still access and participate in the meeting by a few measures. Watching this meeting remotely through the city's live stream and playback of the archived video stream, and submitting questions about the agenda business and decisions made by council today by emailing the City Clerk's office at cityclerksoffice@brampton.ca with your question, which may be read into the public record during the public question period section of today's agenda. Also, please continue to follow important service and public health updates through the city's website at www.brampton.ca, which includes updated information on the city's response as well as links to other important sources of information, including Region of Peel Public Health, Province of Ontario, and Government of Canada. A final reminder to members of committee before we start is to consider today's agenda business. Please ensure that your video is off and microphone muted until you are assigned the floor. Then you can turn both on when you speak. This will help to ensure that only one person is speaking and minimize potential issues. Next, we have declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act or any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Seeing none, the clerk will so note for the minutes. Next up, we have consent agenda. We have our consent motion. The items listed with an asterisk on the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial. The consent motion is adopted on these matters on today's agenda without the need for additional separate discussion unless a member requests a separate discussion. Does any member wish to add, remove, or remove an item to the consent agenda today? I see no requests to speak, so I have a motion from Councillor Bowman to approve the consent motion. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, that carries, Mr. Clerk. Next, I'll move forward to item 5, Government Relation Matters. We have a staff report and item 5.1, Government Relation Matters, and we have Gurdeep Kaur here with a presentation for committee on Government Relation Matters. Ms. Kaur, please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Brown and members of council. We'll start off with slide 1, please. We're going to start off with coordinated approach to reopening the economy. We've seen this week the province, including Ontario, beginning the process of reopening their economies while the process varies across the country. Based on how COVID-19 impacted them, the First Ministers have agreed on common principles with the federal government, ensuring the transmission is controlled, having sufficient public health capacity, supports in place for vulnerable groups, and having appropriate workplace protocols in place. We expect as further measures are relaxed, similar principles will be leveraged by municipalities, including those here in the city of Brampton. Last week I mentioned there was support for students, and I updated council on new measures for students who are impacted by the COVID-19. The enabling legislation has now received royal assent. The emergency student benefit will be available May to August 2020 and provide $1,250 a month for eligible students or $2,000 for students with dependents or disabilities. Next slide, please. I will provide a provincial update. Workplace safety guidelines. As highlighted previously, the Ontario government continues to provide more information on their plans to reopen the province. On April the 30th, the government released initial guidelines to support those working in manufacturing, food manufacturing, processing, restaurant and food service, and the agricultural sectors. These measures build upon guidelines developed by Ontario's health and safety associations for various sectors, such as retail, healthcare, construction, transportation, police services, firefighters, and transit employees. As of May the 4th, certain businesses and workplaces were allowed to reopen as long as they comply with strict business health measures. These include lawn care and landscaping, garden centers, nurseries, curbside delivery, community gardens, certain essential construction projects, including municipal constructions. I'm going to be giving a quick update on COVID-19 tackling the barriers portal. Last week, the Associate Minister of Small Businesses, Red Tape Reduction launched Tackling the Barriers portal. The portal is for businesses in various sectors to suggest regulatory changes that could help them become more efficient and cope with COVID-19. Businesses in Brampton can suggest regulatory changes that will help them become more efficient and cope with COVID-19. Other measures that the provincial government expanded the list of frontline workers eligible to use their emergency childcare program to include meat packing companies, retail grocery clerks, Ontario truckers, and LTC workers. They also launched new Ontario 511 app, which provides an up-to-date information for truck drivers during COVID-19. Next slide, please. Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I wanted to provide a few updates with respect to our ongoing work with FCM. Ongoing collaboration. The city continues to actively work with municipalities across Canada to support FCM's advocacy to the federal government for a municipal operating fund. Through CFO FCM Working Group, we are sharing information including identified COVID-19 related costs. As provinces announce reopening plans, we are also beginning to assess what impact the process will have on local economies. We will continue to share information as it becomes available. I would like to touch upon the Green Municipal Fund and community efficiency financing. Last week, Councillor Willens asked about the new community efficiency financing that has recently become available through FCM's Green Municipal Fund. I won't repeat all the information that's been provided in our briefing and memo, but will highlight the following. The $3 million incentive, which includes multiple application intakes between now and winter 2021, is to support municipalities deliver energy-efficient financing programs for low-rise residential properties. The new funding and learning resources focus on a variety of areas listed on the slide. I'm pleased to report that staff is well aware of this opportunity and believes there is great alignment with advanced to advance Council's green priorities, including those identified through the Community Energy and Emissions Reduction Plan. My team is working closely with environmental staff in drafting a work plan and preparing all necessary prereqs to position the city to apply in the fall for FCM's second intake. 2020 FCM Sustainable Community Awards. I quickly wanted Council to know that the city has put forward for a submission for the 2020 FCM Sustainable Community Award for our Fletcher's Creek Sustainable Neighborhood Action Plan, bringing local residents, community leaders together to take environmental action and build climate change resilience. Winners will be honored during the Sustainable Communities Conference taking place October 20th to 22nd. And I would like to thank Mike and staff for all their hard work in pulling this submission together for us. And I'm hoping to share some good news on this soon. Slide 4, please. Association of Municipalities of Ontario 2020 AMO Annual Conference Update. I wanted to provide 2 updates regarding the 2020 AMO Conference. First, AMO has officially launched a virtual AMO 2020 conference between August the 17th to the 19th, including virtual delegation meetings with ministers. Staff is currently in the process of preparing a report identifying potential topics, issues, and ministers to request meetings with. We will share this with you as well as a process to request meetings in the near future. Second, I wanted to inform members of council that the call for nominations to the 2022 AMO Board of Directors opened last week. A completed nomination form with supporting material, including a council resolution of support and specifying the caucus member for the City of Brampton. This would be the large urban caucus, must be received no later than June the 22nd, 2020. We included this information as an appendix to the report as well. And if anyone's interested, please let me know so we can assist members of council and put their name forward with the nomination process. The large urban Mayor's Caucus of Ontario, so LUMCO update. The mayor continues to participate in the LUMCO meetings and advocating for provincial support for municipalities to address COVID-19 related impacts. The most recent news release was included as an appendix 2 to the memo, and I will also be sharing the appendix 2 after our council update with all the council and Mayor Brown. And secondly, slide 5, please. The next regional council meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May the 14th, 2020. And at this time, I would like to invite Mikhail Mar, our chair at Region of Peel, that will be discussing the community table with us.
Thank you, Gurdeep. Through the chair, I'd like to share a brief verbal update from the Regional Community Response Table. The Community Response Table convenes several times each week to identify, prioritize, and respond to urgent organizational and community needs. Our main focus every meeting is to provide local updates, identify current needs, and collaborate through the table members, which now include municipalities. On this past Monday, May the 4th, the Reaching Home and Social Service Relief Fund application went live on the Region of Peel website. This application followed a decision by Regional Council to grant authority to provide regional staff the ability to administer these programs. This application can be found on the Region of Peel website under the Community Investment Program section. Today, at the Community Response Table, we will continue to discuss with agencies and organizations regarding the identification of needs beyond the initial impact of COVID-19 pandemic, and will focus on COVID recovery phase and vulnerable populations. Next week, May the 14th, at the next Regional Council meeting, regional staff will be reporting back to Regional Council regarding the $1 million increase to the Community Investment Program and how those funds were distributed. As this information becomes more available, I'll be sharing updates with the Joint Task Force staff leads for comments and feedback. With that, I conclude my updates. Thank you.
Thank you to you both. Do any members have any questions for this section? I have Councillor Willens on the board. Councillor.
Yes, just quickly, three quick items on the. Thank you for bringing the Green Municipal Fund forward. That's great. That's I've been talking with our staff to find out when we're going to put our application in. There's a few things we have to work out first, but that's great. Keep it at the forefront. Second thing is maybe Mayor Brown can and staff can help with this when it comes to the where are we here with the opening. reopening of the economy, and also I guess it's under the, yeah, it says there are certain lawn care and landscaping garden centers and nurseries for curbside delivery are being opened. I've got a call this morning, and maybe Mayor Brown can look into this from the province level. There are garden centers outside of our municipality that are open, fully open. They're not opening their stores, but they're not just curbside. They're allowing the residents to go into the gated off, maintaining social distancing, of course, and maintaining the safe practices for the COVID legislation. But maybe you could look into that for us. I did get a call from our garden gallery in Brampton here, and there are other garden galleries that they're involved with have been open. They're opening up and planning on opening full service so people can pick the plants on Friday. So maybe if our staff can look into that, if they're getting around it, if this is a municipal sort of through the municipal bylaws, or if they've been contacted the province. So I think it's important, because we will be losing some business to our local garden centers to outside communities if we don't help them out. And they are abiding by the curbside rules now, and they are doing the social distancing. So that's maybe that's something that we could look into, since I just got a call this morning, probably about a half an hour ago on that. And the third thing, I'd be interested in the board of directors for the AMO, but before I make a decision, I'd want to sit down or to have a conversation with our government relations folks to see what the commitment and all that is. But I would be interested in putting my name forward, as I have been kept in touch with a lot of the other municipalities through the Global Covenant of Mayors that I attended. So it might be beneficial to sit at that as City of Brampton. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Willens. Next, I have Councillor Pleshy.
Thank you. Before I go, can I just hear from staff on some of the items that Councillor Willens had raised?
If I may, through the chair, Joe Patari here. Councillor Willens, as it pertains to the garden centers, it is an extremely gray area that the province is trying to rectify between its various emergency orders that it has provided. But as it stands for the City of Brampton, our bylaw team is taking the position that they are allowed to operate and to, in the best way they can, manage the physical distancing component. We are patrolling them only to assist them to comply with physical distancing. We are not charging any of them, recognizing it is an important business opportunity for our businesses in that field within the city, and we're just helping them work effectively.
Councillor Pleshy, would it be okay if I respond before your next question?
Please go ahead.
Yes,
Joe.
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for that clarification. So what I'm getting out of that, our bylaw guys are working with them to make sure, because I know that the Garden Gallery and there's other ones in Brampton that have set up. They've done extensive measures to put social distancing in place. They've got. I went up to the Garden Gallery to see. He asked me to come up to have a look at what they put in place, and they've actually gone farther than what the grocery stores have done. They've got social distancing outside. They've got social distancing. They've got one-way aisles where they don't have the space for people to pass by. They've got their staff who all have masks, gloves. They've got hand wash stations on just about every post around where the plants are, with the vegetables and whatnot they'll be picking up. And they are not opening the store. They're doing everything with the cash registers and remote, the wireless internet things. Everything is done outside, so the residents or the customers will not be going into the store itself. That's closed off, and they've maintained inside the store for people that still want to continue with curbside pickup, and they're actually going to continue curbside pickup through this. But it's very essential that they get that back open without, they want to follow guidelines and they want help and they want assistance in this. But it's very important, as Frankie Flowers said on our Instagram Live, it's very important weekend coming up, and if they can get the assurance that they're not going to be charged as long as they're maintaining social distancing just like the grocery store do, that would be a very big help for the garden centers in Brampton. So if that's my interpretation, maybe Joe, maybe we could have your guys contact especially Garden Gallery, because they're the ones that have sort of been more vocal in this, and maybe reassure them that they're not going to be laying charges as long as they're maintaining their social distancing, and maybe we can assist them through this. Any comments?
Thank you. Through the chair, in speaking with Director Morrison yesterday about this, our position is in fact not to charge anyone and just proactively work with them to ensure that the physical distancing piece is in place, and we will reach out to Garden Gallery to give them that assurance.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if I may, Councillor Pleshy, before we move to your question, with respect to Councillor Willen's request to make a run for the Board of Directors for FCM, in the past we have passed a motion at Council to support that candidate. Does anyone on Council wish to move, if no one else is interested, to have Councillor Willens be to run on behalf of the City of Brampton to FCM?
I believe it's AMO. I believe it's
Sorry.
AMO. Yeah.
My apologies to AMO. Councillor Pleshy, go ahead.
Thank you, and yes, and I'm happy to move that. Just before I get into my government relations question, I did have a follow-up question to Councillor Willen's point. I'm concerned. I'm not so much concerned as organizations or companies like the Garden Gallery, but I am concerned on some of these larger corporations, the Walmarts, the Home Depots of the world that have these plantings in the garden center in those areas, and the limit that they'll be able to handle the amount of people that are going and browsing through their small, tight little areas. And then you look at some of the other grocery stores in the city, and I know just three off the top of my head, that it's a very small setup outside where it's really hard for them to control the amount of people that are browsing through whatever flowers and potted plants that people are looking to. What recommendations do we have for these types of companies to ensure that if they're not able to accommodate the drive-through pickup, and it's the tables and of the plants are kind of out front for people to look at and grab on their way in, what recommendations do we have to these companies?
If I may, through the chair, to Councillor Pleshy, many of those types of entities that you've identified are trying to not even allow folks into those garden centers. Those doors are locked, trying to do much more of the curbside pickup. But in cases where that is not the opportunity, what I've seen and recommendations we can give to those organizations is to have staff present and limit the number of people allowed to browse the aisles of plants at any given time, to ensure that there's less than 5 people and that there's 6 feet between them, and someone is just overseeing that. And then once individuals purchase what they have, another person's allowed into those various areas. That is what I've witnessed in some of those garden centers and some of the recommendations we can provide.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So my question, just in relation to the community response table, question to Mikhail. Mikhail, what other regional tables does the City of Brampton currently sit on? And if we don't sit on others, which ones have we identified that we would like to take part in?
Through the chair, Councillor, to respond to Councillor Pleshy, there are a number of tables at the region. I believe the BMO team also sits on quite a few tables, but with regards to regional community response table, they have sub-tables as well. So there are a number of tables, and we are a part of all of those tables. With regards to the sub-tables within the regional community response table, myself and my team sit on those tables. It's a large list, and I can provide that to you.
If you could, I would appreciate a list provided to members of council, and then also what part of, I guess, what part of your team, who sits at which table. I think that would be appreciated. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pleshy. So, members of council, we have a motion moved by Councillor Pleshy that the nomination of Councillor Whillans to the AMO Large Urban Caucus be supported and endorsed by Brampton City Council. Do I have any speakers to the motion? Seeing no speakers, we'll now vote on the motion. Do any members opposed to the motion? Seeing none. Thank you, Clerk. That passes. So we'll move on to our next item, 5.2, which is an update on the COVID-19 emergency. Mayor Brown has been providing regular updates for council at our meetings, and I would like to now invite the mayor to provide an update to committee today. Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Councillor Vicente, and welcome to this committee of council. And I would note, thank you to members of council who are all wearing their COVID-19 t-shirts. We purchased these in support of Ryan Reynolds and Haley Wickenheiser's campaign to support PPE in locations in the country that do not have personal protective equipment for healthcare workers. I've been chatting to Ryan Reynolds about his campaign, and why not get the entire council and all of us supporting the effort. So I'm not sure if at home you can see it, but it says Conquer COVID-19. So please, if you're out and about, let's support their great campaign. Haley Wickenheiser being a multiple gold medal Olympic champion in women's hockey, and Ryan Reynolds being a successful actor who, despite moving to the U.S., still takes an intense interest in Canada. And I've actually been talking to him about our electric buses and the new transit terminal, and he loves what we're doing on climate change. So that's a bit of a side issue. A few COVID-19 updates in the last week. We have now surpassed what the city can handle for the backyard garden program. So rather than give Doug Whillans another heart attack, and it is his 60th birthday, so I do not want to give him a heart attack, we should know and be clear to the city, we're now well over the waiting list that we can handle. I think we have a total of 14,000 people have signed up, and so we can't take any additional capacity on the backyard garden program. But thank you for everyone who participated. It's remarkable that we're turning a lemon into lemonade. We're going to have to throw out all these plants and vegetables, and now they're being used in Brampton Gardens. That's great for food security, and it's great for the environment. So well done, Councillor Whillans. I should also update, we've had Nav Bhatia doing food deliveries over the last week. Thank you to Councillor Singh and Dillon and Santos who helped out with some of those deliveries. I also want to thank Councillor Vicente and Santos for that beautiful Lean On Me video that became viral. It was on Global, it was in the Toronto Sun, talking about how we've all pitched in together. So well done. And to Carmen Spada, who was involved in that as well. Carmen, you made us proud, and thank you, Wards 1 and 5, for stepping up. I should also note, we're seeing real progress right now in our efforts to flatten the curve. We have now tested 27 to 28 long-term care homes, and if you look at the number of positive cases, a lot of them came from the long-term care setting. And so I think now that we've finished the testing of the long-term care centers, you're going to start to see the numbers become smaller and smaller. So our goal was to flatten the curve, and because of everyone's patience, everyone's commitment, the fact that 99% of the city followed the rules and listened to public health, we are flattening the curve. And so we've been able to save lives by these efforts. So those are sort of the central updates over the last week. We had a press conference this morning, and thank you to Councillor Paleshi and Fortini who helped me with that press conference. Councillor Fortini gave the bylaw update, and Councillor Paleshi talked about emergency management. This is now the 100th day since the first emergency management meeting, and Alan Orman and Razmeen Syed have been doing a great job for the city, and so Michael helped highlight some of their contributions. So other than that, everyone keep up the great work. I am very proud of how Team Brampton continues to pitch in every corner of the city.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a speakers list. I'll first go to Councillor Willens. Councillor Willens, please go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, thank you, Mayor. You brought up the point I was going to make about how wonderful the participants have been in the backyard garden program, but unfortunately it's going to be hard pressed to get to a lot of that waiting list, but you mentioned that anyway, so thank you very much. And councillors, if you are getting calls on regard of where they are, please forward any emails to myself or to Rob Gasp. We'll look after that, getting the message back out there, because they do have some generic messaging to the residents in regards to the program. So, but thank you, everybody who's involved. It's going to be a challenge, but the mayor assures me that we can do it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Willens. I now move forward to Councillor Williams, who's on the board. Councillor Williams.
Hi, yes, thank you. Through you, Chair, I just want to remind everyone that even though we are, practicing social distancing and we are home, it is National Youth Week from May 1st to May 7th, and I want to encourage everyone to go onto our website so that you can see some of the great things that we are doing to celebrate National Youth Week. For example, there is going to be a keynote speaker on May 7th, Orlando Bowen, giving some really great information to our youth, and there'll be other activities that we want to encourage everybody to get involved with. So even though we're social distancing, it is National Youth Week, and normally we would have lots of really great activities at the city, but we're still doing them just virtually. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I have no further speakers. I have a motion moved by Councillor Dillon to receive the report from the mayor. Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, that carries. Next, we have delegations. There are no delegations today, Mr. Clerk. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Clerk, if you can, for folks who are listening at home and for future meetings, can you just quickly provide information on how members of the public are able to make delegations to items if they choose to, given that we are running these meetings electronically?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly. So for the first several meetings since the onset of the COVID-19 emergency, written delegations are permitted in terms of pre-recorded text or audio or video. They could be submitted to the clerk's office, and we will provide that to council if it's relative to an agenda item. And we are working on provisions for future meetings in the coming weeks to then start to entertain real-time delegations, either audio or video, into council and committee meetings as appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And with that, I move on to Economic Development and Culture section. We have no business in this section, and I would imagine we have no questions. Do any members have questions with regards to Economic Development and Culture? Seeing none, we'll move forward to Corporate Services section, which is chaired by Councillor Singh.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just before we leave, there is item 7.6, public question period for economic development, but I will note that there are no public questions that have come in so far.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Singh, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me before I begin?
Yes.
Okay. And just for members of the public, my laptop is here and my screen is here, so I'll be looking there, but I am paying attention just for clarity. Okay, beginning the corporate services section, 8.1, seeing no staff presentations. Moving on to report, 8.2.1 is to be received. Do any members have any questions? Seeing none, any members against approving this? Seeing none, that 8.2.1 is approved. 8.2.2, moving on to Purple Liliac Memorial Park. I see Councillor Vicente has a question.
No question, Mr. Chair. Just providing a marker there on the list. I think you have Councillor Williams next.
Okay. Councillor Williams?
Hi, yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to thank staff for all the work that they've done on this. They've communicated with the heritage, the historical societies and all the stakeholders and the families who are still here and the community that was impacted. And, you know, I'm really impressed with how they've made everyone feel heard and took into consideration all the sensitivity of this park. During the Doors Open event, I was able to check out the park, and it's beautiful, but it is difficult to locate because the sign doesn't say that it's a memorial park, and you have to kind of go down a little bit of a hill. So renaming this park, I think, will be really great for recognition that this is a significant area and that a significant period in Brampton's history took place. And so I just want to thank again all that was done, and I look forward to when we are able to have a celebration there once all restrictions have been lifted.
Thank you. And yeah, it was definitely a huge event that City of Brampton. So glad to see staff is working on this. Anybody against approving? Oh, Councillor Fertini also has a comment.
Yeah, thank you through the chair, and thank you to staff. Yes, this park, I remember going back almost 4 years ago that I walked through, and Rob Gasper, the commissioner there, and some of the staff and some of the seniors, we did a lot of cleanup there because we couldn't even see anything there of all the bushes. And they did an amazing job. Just the staff, I just want to, we spent like 3 weekends there cleaning. I just want to make sure when we put the signs that for the park, we put it on the park side, don't put it on the residents are known where the sign's going to be. And I do agree with Councillor Charmaine Williams that the sign is way below, so a lot of people don't actually see it. So maybe if we can move it up closer to where the seating area is of there's a little park just up on the hill there. So with an arrow direction, there is a path that goes through there. That goes over to over the river there. I think that a lot of the students are using that, and we've got to make sure that the snow is also clean for them in the winter time. So great job to staff, and thank you.
Thank you. Is any member against approving 8.2.2? All right, that is approved. 8.2.3, community benefits and fair wage policy. Do any members wish to speak on this report? Yes, I see Mayor Brown has a comment to make.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Singh. I'm glad that this is on the this staff report's back. We had passed this, I think, about 6 months ago. For members of council, just for awareness, there are programs like the Hammerheads that take youth from the most vulnerable communities, and they're given opportunities in the construction industry. It's something the building trades has worked on, and it's just a great thing for a community when you're trying to lift everyone up, and the building trades are completely behind it. Other cities have looked at this and how to incorporate it, and so I just think this aspect of it is positive, and so hopefully the consultant will get back to us on recommendations. My initial hope had been that we could have done this internally. I'm told that procurement doesn't have the capacity to do this internally. That's why they need a consultant. But you know, I just want to say that this is a step in the right direction. I've toured the Hammerheads before, and it makes you proud of what they're doing, and you see how it changes lives, and that's the genesis behind this.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Councillor Williams?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I really, respect and appreciate unions. My dad came to Canada as a tool and die maker, and especially being an immigrant, when he eventually started working at Chrysler, unions were very supportive in helping, many navigate the system and, advocate for rights. And especially when it comes to trades, we need the trades in Brampton, and they really advocate for people to be involved in the trades. At the same time, though, we are a city full of small businesses, and small businesses really also do fuel the city. And our economic development team, they work really hard to engage small businesses and to get them going, to get them growing, get them started and off the ground. So I'm really I'm wondering, is this now the time to really look at, putting in more barriers that could potentially make it difficult for small businesses to get in, engage in our procurement process, in that competitive process. I was looking and doing some research on it as well, and I know that in Toronto, if they had the open shop tender, they could see a savings of around $400 million a year. So I'm hoping that we are able to find out how much this would financially impact taxpayers, how much money it would cost for us to have a fair wage policy in place that may potentially increase the amount of money it will take to do jobs in the city. I see that. And also, as we're in COVID, this is a time where we're in a recession. If we go ahead and do this, I would like to at least see an amendment for staff to report on this, and staff to report on how this will affect businesses in Brampton. It's during the economic recession. I don't want to see taxpayers have to spend money to find out how much more money it might impact us, how much it might cost us as a city. But I see other people on the board, so I'm going to let other people speak and listen. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to ask about the same thing I ask about every time we bring up hiring a consultant. And that is, Mayor Brown mentioned we have nobody on staff that can do this at the present time, but we're going to set aside 150 grand for a consultant to do it. And I'm just wondering, for less than 150 grand, that's a year's salary to hire somebody to come in and do this for us. So that's my only concern. Again, every time we bring a consultant up, I have the same concern. Why can't we get somebody internally, train them to do this particular job, and then we've got them on staff? But I'll wait and hear what everybody else has to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Brown?
Yeah, just to say, I wouldn't confuse this with the open shop, closed shop debate. The province has already settled that. There was a time to opt in and a time to opt out. That window's already passed. This is about fair wages and about community benefits. And so community benefits would mean that you would include small businesses, that you'd include marginalized communities in Brampton. So I just want to make sure we're having the right discussion, because I'd encourage members of council to go and tour the Hammerheads location, and it will blow you away. These are people that it turns their lives around by giving them a hand up, and they learn a trade. The reason it's important now is we asked staff for a staff report 6 months ago. We passed that 11-0, and staff has come back to us saying they don't have the capacity in-house to do this. And Councillor Bowman, I agree with you. I would love it if we could, have the capacity to handle this in-house. It always makes me scratch my head a little bit when we have to go outside again, but that is what it is. If this is what's required to develop a proper policy, then at least going forward, we can be one of the communities that has community benefits and helps the most vulnerable in our community. But I wouldn't want to delay this. Reason being, we're going to have an infrastructure stimulus program coming very soon on the heels of this pandemic, and this is an opportunity to lift up small businesses, to lift up local youth who are who need a little bit of inspiration, and so now is the absolute right time to do this.
All right, thank you, Mayor Brown. I see Councillor Furkini.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a quick question. Is this also to the mayor, I guess, staff, including the unions like LIUNA, or just the Hammerheads?
No, it would be consulting with everyone. LIUNA being the largest private sector union, they'd be the first to be consulted.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just to echo what the Mayor has said, the fact that this is about community benefits, fair wage policy, Councillor Medeiros and I have been chatting with staff as well as the various stakeholders on this motion before and after it was passed. And the whole idea of community benefits does include looking at the local economy and supporting the local economy and the local businesses. So I just wanted to really emphasize and clarify that again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Medeiros?
Thank you, through the chair. And I won't repeat what's already been said, but just for my regional colleagues, this is not anything new. Peel Region, if you may recall, we started this in 2015. We looked at community benefits. So Hammerheads with Peel Region on some of our capital projects, we ensured in the tender that they would take on apprenticeships, and then Hammerheads focused on the Brampton area. And if people recall who were last term of council, many of those interviews by the Hammerheads were actually held at City of Brampton, and there was a focus on getting young people from City of Brampton and region. Again, it has its hiccups. It wasn't from the fact that the program well intended, they just couldn't get the numbers and pull the youth, but that's an issue with all the trades. But they had, I believe, 75% take up from youth, and then after some of the other youth that came from outside. But fully supportive. It's a great initiative. But again, this is not anything new. It's already been it's already done at the Peel Region, and I think it's a great initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Medeiros. Councillor Willens.
Yeah, just quickly, thank you, Councillor Medeiros, for bringing that up. I remember talking about this last term of council. It's great that it's moving forward. But quick question, maybe Councillor Bowman could answer it. I believe Sheridan College was involved with this last term of council as well, I think. I'm not sure, but maybe Councillor Bowman, because I know you were involved with the Hammerheads last term as well as Councillor Medeiros, so maybe you could just say yay or nay.
Was that for Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Willens?
Councillor Bowman, because I think he worked with Sheridan College on this.
Yeah, he's okay. Councillor Bowman can just say yay or nay, because Councillor Pleshy.
Yay, and then I'll speak again.
Okay, it's a yes, Councillor Willens. And are you done, Councillor Willens?
I am so.
Okay, Councillor Pleshy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to support this. I just I would like to get an understanding, as I do recall the discussion that we had at the region. Currently, how much at the region are they currently spending on this program, and how the program is being allocated to what dollars for the 3 municipalities. So if staff could reach out to the region to find out that information and just get it back to us by way of email, I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Councillor Pleshy, and Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much. And I'd just like to follow up. I mean, if this is already being done at the region, as a couple of the regional councillors have already stated, again, why can't we just piggyback on what the region is doing, tailor it a little bit for our Brampton community? Again, 150 grand is a lot of money if we're going to be reinventing the wheel on this. And so if the region has already done it, I don't understand why we just can't piggyback on what the region's done. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm just looking at the report though, because it does say in our report that, it's difficult for businesses to remain competitive in the wider market. It reduces the pool of businesses willing and able to supply the city with goods and services. So, there's some disadvantages to doing this from a competitive side. And, it makes me concerned for our small businesses in the city who are really looking to grow, and we want our small businesses to grow, especially in the trades. We want that competitive market. So, I really would like to see some of this information come back to us around like how much it will impact, how much this policy could impact us on the small businesses and medium-sized businesses. And I wonder if that is something that can be done in-house by staff rather than spending the $150,000. Similar to, as Councillor Bowman said just now, can we get some of this information prior to having to invest in such a large sum of money at this time? So something to consider. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Patari, do you have any comments to make before I vote?
Thank you, Chair. In general, this is a very complex issue. As you saw in the report, there are a few municipalities that have fair wage policies in place. Others are exploring it. What we've done, or what the purchasing team have done as part of their research in trying to prepare for this report, as well as their initial attempt at trying to create such a policy, is in fact that one size does not fit all, and that we need to be very explicit in terms of defining what our objectives are going to be for this program, and the consultant is going to help that us. We need a made in Brampton solution for our fair wage policy, which will then directly support community benefits component to this. We've seen other municipalities go out to market for consultants. And as I said, very, very niche market. There aren't many people who can do this work or have the knowledge and subject matter expertise in defining what these things are. Many folks interchange the concept of living wage, fair wage, and community benefits like they're all one thing, when in fact they're all very different. And we need to work together with the stakeholders such as LiUNA and Hammerheads, as well as there are a number of other partners in our community that would support those organizations and those small businesses to ensure that we are reaching out to those vulnerable individuals to help improve the city of Brampton and employment. So this is our best approach in defining. We're trying to do what we can internally by establishing the sustainable procurement policy. That framework is in the report, so that's something we can work on. We have confidence in, and we're going to do on our own. So that's not going to be done by a consultant. And we've just put that place marker in for $150K. Our expectation and hope is that it does not cost anywhere near that number.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Willens.
No, thank you. Just as I'm typing, Joe asked that because I can't see it costing that much money if we have some staff that can do part of the work. So maybe we can lower that amount, or do you want to maybe just change it? I don't know if you can change the wording a little bit because it seems a little high, as Councillor Bowman and the mayor pointed out. It's a lot of money, but I think we could probably do it internally. But I'll let Joe answer that.
Through the chair, again, depending on the complexity of the consultation that we would explore, that will be something, and especially recognizing the pandemic and physical distancing and having to come up with some alternative ways of engaging folks. And I'm confident a consultant and staff can do that. And if we can free up staff time to support a consultant and reduce their scope, I would be comfortable to see that number reduced to under 100,000. I know other municipalities have done it, and they've done it well under the number that's been proposed.
Okay, thanks, Joe, for that. And now I see that Martin's on the board, so I'm good with that. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, through the chair. And it's been suggested by, I think, Councillor Paletti and others, because the region already has a lot of some best practices, and if you look at Metrolinx, that's exactly what they've been doing along the LRT line, is looking at community benefits. And the union themselves, they have policy folks that certainly we would coordinate their material, and I know there's opposing positions. So the information is out there, so I don't think a consultant's going to have to start from scratch. It's really just pulling, coordinating, and providing some best practices and recommendations. But certainly Commissioner Patari would know better than me, but I think that it won't be a cumbersome, which won't turn into a big sort of price tag. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Medeiros. I have a request from Councillor Bowman to separate the motions. Councillor Bowman, which would you like to vote on separately? Recommendation, if you could just put it in the group. Okay, so we'll vote on 1 to 3, and we'll vote on 4 separately. So anybody in the negative or against the recommendations 1 to 3? Hearing none, those are passed. And anybody against recommendation 4? I only got Councillor Bowman, and that passes as well. Thank you.
Sorry, for the record, I was trying to type, and me too, I'm against number 4.
Okay, we have 2 councillors against number 4. Okay, just let the clerk type. Okay, moving on to 8.2.4, which is a staff report on the noise bylaw. Before I open this up, I just wanted to, for recommendation 2, suggest that we add the date, which is May 24th, for this one-time exemption that's suggested. And also for recommendation 3, I'm going to suggest that we remove that for now, because during COVID, a lot of resources are taken to review bylaws, but particularly this bylaw, given how complex it will get. I'm going to suggest that we don't review the bylaw in the near future. I also want to give special thanks to Paul Morrison. He's done outstanding work on this report, but just in general. Team has been very helpful. I've seen him personally interact with many face groups, businesses during this time, and he is stern, but stern in a good way to keep us safe. But everybody that has dealt with him appreciates everything he's doing. Do any members have any questions? Seeing Mayor Brown?
The one thing I would just specify is we should not specify one faith, we should say all faiths. And so if a Gurdwara or a temple wanted to have a virtual faith gathering, because of physical distancing, we want to make all our faith communities have the same ability. And so when we say azan, it's specific to the Muslim. What the problem with our 1984 bylaw is that it only exempts the Christian faith. And so I think we need to be clear that what we're doing is for all faiths.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Medeiros. Sorry, just to the clerk, are we striking out all of 3, or I just see part of the 3rd striked out?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I understood that perhaps you wanted to strike out number 3, if that was not your intent.
Yeah, I want to strike it all out. Yeah. Oh, Councillor Medeiros says fine. Okay. Okay, thank you. So seeing no other comments, any members against the recommendations? Hearing none, that passes. Moving on to 8.2.5, I have Councillor Bowman. Councillor Bowman.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple of questions. I read the report, and I was the only dissenting voice against this last week in council. And when I asked to see some reports come back, I was hoping to see some numbers. some metrics. How many eyes have seen our advertising? How many people has it reached? How many people have responded to our advertising? The exact dollar figure that we've used for each media outlet for what type of advertising. That's what I was hoping to see in this report that came back, but that's not there. And I still do not agree with increasing our spend in advertising during the COVID crisis at all, because there are so many different ways to get that message out there. You know, we're looking tonight. When I read the report, everything's based on mother tongue, the mother tongue of whatever diverse community group we're advertising to. But if you follow the census data further, you'll find out that 93% of all residents in Brampton who responded to an official language that they use, it's English, 93%. And here we are specifically saying we need to reach out more to diverse populations, diverse media companies, and I just don't have the data, I don't have the information, and I don't think we've been collecting it this whole time to see what bang we're getting for our buck with each of these media outlets. And just to go ahead and spend more with them if we're not getting anything from them to begin with, that just doesn't make any sense to me. And, you know, tonight we're doing a teletown hall. They've been extremely well attended. We're probably close, and Mayor Brown can tell me this, but we're probably close to 100,000 people listened to our town halls over the course of the last 5 weeks. And our town halls, as far as I know, are in one language. So if we're going to go this route and try and reach the widest audience possible, then we should have people online or people sitting at City Hall translating all the town halls into the 11 different languages so that everybody can hear them, everybody can understand them, and everybody can participate in them. So I accept the report. The report is fine. It's what was written. It wasn't what I was hoping or expecting to receive to give us some more valuable information that we need. But I still do not support spending it. But that's neither here nor there, because that was already passed last week. But if we're going to do this, then I would suggest we use a lot of different avenues that are available to us to reach a much wider audience, starting with the town halls. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Councillor Dillon?
Sorry, I see, thank you, Mr. Chair. I see it's being moved by Councillor Sampson. I'm just wondering if she was moving the, what exactly is being moved here other than receipt?
Yeah, I noticed that. There's a recommendation to receive the report to the clerk. I guess it just can be received, right?
Through
but
you,
is there a
Mr. Chair, can you please repeat the question? There was some interference with some other background noise.
Oh, no problem. So there's one recommendation, which is to essentially receive the report. So I think we can move to receive it. We don't need to approve the recommendation, correct?
That's correct. It's just one recommendation. It's an information report only.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
but for one of the, sorry, Mr. Chair, through the chair, actually, what happens if it's received? Is things stay status quo, or will there be an increase in the funding for ethnic language advertising?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Council made that decision last week.
Yeah.
Okay, so that decision's as is. This is so number 1 and 2 will move forward. Is that correct?
As part of the resolution last week, that is a decision of Council. Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, seeing no other questions, anybody against the to receive the report?
Sorry, can I have just one more question, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
For any, this is perhaps to Mr. Tamming, if he's there, or anybody else who can answer, if there are any interested outlets from any type of media, how do they go about if they're interested in getting these some of these advertising opportunities?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor, you could, as a counselor, anybody could let me know, or they could forward them to the manager on my team. But what we do, as I mentioned last week, there's a bit of a formal intake process where a number of a survey is filled out by the respective outlet, asking a number of questions as Councillor Bowman outlined with respect to readership and numbers. As you can appreciate, some of that is not easy necessarily to do due diligence on. However, taken at face value, we also expect and require to pay the invoices that those outlets would submit to Strategic Communications, a confirmed copy of where that was printed or submitted digitally, so that we can confirm that information before the invoices are paid. So they can let me know, and we'll take it from there.
So there's a link for media questionnaire that's on the online agenda. Is that something that they could use?
That is the questionnaire that they would be required to fill out, yes.
Okay, thanks a lot. No more further questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, anybody against to receive the report? Hearing none, the report will be received. 8.3.1, the minutes are to be approved. Anybody against approving those minutes? Hearing nobody.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the minutes were received as part of, or approved as part of.
Oh, sorry, consent. Yeah, my fault. Okay, and we have correspondence, which we don't need to receive.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, Mr. Chair. There was additional correspondence that was added on the supplementary agenda, 8.4.1, regarding the Purple Lilac Memorial Park for receipt, as well as correspondence that was distributed this morning to members of committee, 8.4.2, regarding the noise bylaw. Both of those are for receipt.
Okay, anybody against receiving these, 8.4.1 and 8.4.2? Hearing none. Councillors' question period. Any councillors have any questions? Hearing none. Public question period. Hearing none.
Mr. Chair, no questions have been received.
Thank you. I now pass it on to Councillor Vicente from Public Works and Engineering section. Thank you to the public and my colleagues.
Thank you, Chair Singh. So we're now moving on to the Public Works and Engineering section. Item 9.3.1 was in the consent agenda, so we have no further business. Mr. Clerk, did we receive any questions from members of the public with regards to this section of the agenda?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have not.
Thank you. So
did I not add something, Peter, under Community Services 10.1 or 10.3?
So we're in the Public Works section of the agenda, so you'll be next. So I'll now yield the chair to Councillor Santos to chair the Community Services section.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, I am the Chair. Thanks so much, Councillor Vicente. We're now in the Community Services section, and the next item is item 10.3.1, the minutes of the Brampton Sports Hall of Fame, which was approved under consent, which brings us to Councillor Willen's added item 10.3.2 regarding facilities operations. Councillor Willens, the mic is yours.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a quick question, I guess, not really, no motion or anything, just maybe a discussion. Maybe it's directed to Acting Commissioner Derek Boyce in regards to our facilities. With the facilities being closed, I know that a lot of our facility operators are sitting at home, and our facilities, I know the ice has been removed, the pools have been drained. I think this would be a good opportunity to perhaps get the facility operators that would be normally doing the maintenance, get them in there doing the maintenance. They can maintain social distancing quite easily. Maybe get the dressing rooms all up to snuff, get them painted if the pools need to be repainted or boards need to be replaced. Just general maintenance, get it, because we have our maintenance department at the City Hall doing continuous maintenance. So I think if we can get that, and maybe there is a plan in place, I don't know. And for those that would normally come out into our park system, we do have a lot of grass to cut, we do have a lot of soil to deliver, and we do have a lot of litter to be picked. So maybe we can look at utilizing these employees, because right now they're just sitting at home, and I know a lot of them are itching to get back to work, and I think they could be helpful in our community outside of the facilities. So maybe there is a plan in place. I guess maybe that's the question, just to ask Mr. Boyce if there's something coming forward, because I think it's important to get these guys back to work, and a lot of the jobs they can do in the facilities, they can maintain social distancing and take proper precautions to be safe. So maybe I'll wait for the comment from our Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Acting Commissioner Boyce, do you have a response?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Williams, for the question. So both of those issues that you raised, both with respect to cleaning in facilities and maintenance in our community centers and through parks, we are actively working with HR on both of those currently. As you know, we've been trying to sort of get through the first part of this crisis, and then now as we quote unquote normalize a little bit more, we are making plans in terms of how do we return our workforce to our centers to do some of those exact things that you mentioned in your comments. So myself and Sandeep, along with, has been a source of discussion, and we are working on what that looks like in terms of how do we coordinate that. So that will be something that we'll be putting in place very shortly, but we want to do it in a very measured way, in a way that is aligns with and works with our union partners as well, to ensure that everybody's on the same page. So both of those are actively being discussed.
No, that's great to hear, because as you know, I'm being a lifelong resident in Brampton, and I did work with some of these guys that are still there, and they're concerned that they're not going to get back to work, and they just feel like they want to help out during these times, and they kind of, they're just getting itchy. That's all. I'm glad you got a plan in place. I know it's challenging sometimes with the union and with human resources and getting things working out properly. So we just want to make sure they're safe, but I just wanted to make sure that was still being on the forefront and being worked on. So thanks very much for that, Derek. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Our next item is 10.5, Councillors' Question Period. Do any councillors have any questions regarding this section? Seeing none, moving on to 10.6, Public Question Period. I refer to the clerk to see if there's any correspondence for question period.
Madam Chair, no correspondence in the form of questions have come in.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to item number 11, the referred matters list, which is published online. Do any members have any questions regarding the referred matters list? Seeing none. The next item is item 12, public question period, regarding any questions regarding this section. Do we have any correspondence of questions from the public?
No questions have been received.
Thank you. The next item is closed session. I have a motion from Councillor Paleshi to move into closed session to deal with the following item, 13.1, information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory, or a Crown agency of any of them, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. This meeting is now recessed in order for council to consider its closed business item. I have a motion from Councillor Paleshi. Anyone opposed? Okay, so let us recess to closed session. I believe the phone number and information for closed has been sent to all councillors, and I will ask the clerk how long you will need.
Through you, Madam Chair, 10 minutes would be appreciated.
Okay, so it's 2:13. Let's get on the phone no later than 2:23. Thanks, everyone. Mr. Clerk, in the continuing interest of transparency and open government, I will report in public session any outcomes from today's closed session business. As a result of our closed session today, I wish to report the following item 13.1. This matter was considered and no direction was given. Our next and last item of business is 14, adjournment. The committee is next scheduled to meet Wednesday, May 20th, 2020 at 1 p.m. I have a motion moved by Councillor Paleshi to adjourn today's special meeting. That committee do now adjourn to meet again for a regular meeting of committee on Wednesday, May 20th, 2020 at 1 p.m. or at the call of the mayor. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will be counted in the affirmative. Okay. Thank you. There are no objections, so the motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Stay safe and healthy, everyone, and please stay home and practice physical distancing to help flatten the curve of this COVID-19 emergency. Have a great afternoon.